Hey y'all, it is almost time to jump into the new homeschool year officially, but before we do, let's do a summer recap. First of all, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Kaela, a second generation homeschool mom of 4 girls. We are about to enter our 8th year of homeschooling for 2025-2026. And I have been sharing with you guys planning, prepping, getting our space cleared out, all of the things, right? As we head into a new school year. But let's rewind just a bit because a couple months ago, I shared with y'all what our plans were for the summer. And I just wanted to chat with y'all and update you on how all of those resources and plans went for us in May, June, and July. So let's talk about my second daughter first. Over the summer, she was transitioning from 2nd grade to 3rd grade. So now she will officially be a 3rd grader. She was going to read Ramona Quimby, age 8, and we were going to be using this unit guide, this literature unit from Complete Classroom Press. And then additionally, I wanted to review some foundational math concepts with her. She completed this entire workbook. This is from Math Mammoth. We do not use Math Mammoth as our main core curriculum, but I absolutely loved this workbook, and I will probably be buying additional workbooks from them in the future, specifically for our summer break. Like if my daughter needs more practice, more review, these are great for that. Additionally, I did pick up Addition Facts That Stick from Kate Snow. Kate Snow is the creator behind Math with Confidence, which is a complete math curriculum. I believe it goes K through 5 or K through 6. However, this series, the Facts That Stick series, so she has addition facts that stick, subtraction facts that stick, multiplication facts that stick, and I also think she might have division facts that stick. Each of these books is designed to be used just over the course of a few weeks. I believe the addition facts was for 6 weeks. It's not a workbook. It's not a teacher's guide. It's not a full curriculum. It is an activity book. And all of the activities in the book are designed for a parent or a teacher to do with the child. Basically, everything in this book was a math game, and they're really simple math games. You really just need like a deck of cards and a set of dice, and you are good to go. They do have reproducible black line masters in the book for game boards or little game counting charts, 10 frames, that kind of thing. I was able to just scan those and make copies so that I could keep my book intact. The activities are easy, straightforward. They only take a few minutes. And my daughter and I really enjoyed playing these games together. I do highly recommend this book if your child needs additional practice or review with their addition facts. This is the way to do it, especially if you're trying to fill that gap over a summer break. Even if you have kiddos in public or private school, you can do this in 6 weeks and your child will have a much stronger foundation in addition when you're done. I do have subtraction facts that stick, and it was my intention to do both the addition book and the subtraction book over summer break. We definitely had enough time to do it. We quickly were just booked with social engagements, family events. My husband has a modified work schedule over the summer, so he was home with us more. It was all good things. It was all lovely, but it did definitely eat into the time that I would have normally put aside for a little bit more academics and schooling over the summer. I still have this book and I still plan on using it. We might get into it over our autumn break, or we might just do the games from this book on Friday, since I don't normally have my daughter doing a math lesson in her curriculum on Friday. The literature unit that I had for my rising 3rd grader, as I said, was Ramona Quimby, age 8. This went fabulously. I was pretty confident that it would when I selected this. My daughter loved the book. Beverly Cleary still holds a special place in my heart. I absolutely love her books, and my daughter now loves her books too. Even though a lot of this story takes place in a public school, my daughter, who's never set foot in a public school as a student, she still was able to relate to all of the scenarios. She was able to relate to misunderstandings between kids, bullying between kids, miscommunications between parents and children or family members or siblings, and of course the silly, wacky 8-year-old third grade, second grade humor was not lost on her. As far as the literature guide that we used, I actually really liked it. It is very schooly, very traditional. It's worksheets, y'all. It's lots of worksheets. There weren't any cute art projects or crafts or coloring. It's straight up worksheets. I think a lot of people would view these literature guides as boring and a little basic, and I wouldn't disagree with you, but sometimes I want boring. Sometimes I just want straightforward, let's practice the vocabulary, let's have comprehension questions, let's have some basic writing prompts. That was exactly what I was looking for summer learning, and it ticked all the boxes. Okay, so let's talk about my oldest. So my oldest was transitioning from 5th grade. She's going to be my rising 6th grader this upcoming school year. The main focus areas for her over the summer were wrapping up Hearth and Story 5th grade, and then she had one independent unit from Core Knowledge Language Arts. So Hearth and Story, this went great. She was able to wrap up everything, and I'm very pleased because we started Hearth and Story late in the year for her. And I really wasn't sure if she was going to be able to tie up all of the loose ends, but we got everything done with Hearth and Story. So she got grammar done, she got poetry done, she got all the spelling done. She finished all of the brain food, including a pretty big, pretty substantial presentation project. More on that later. The only components from Hearth and Story 5th grade that we are carrying over into 6th grade are going to be the novel studies, the literature, and the writing. She did not quite wrap up all of the writing lessons. Those will just carry over to the beginning of her 6th grade year. And then in all of the other subject areas, she will be transitioning to the 6th grade level with Hearth and Story. Her independent unit for May, while her sister was doing Ramona Quimby, she was working on this unit from Core Knowledge Language Arts. This is their Renaissance unit. So this particular unit is from their grade 5 year, and it's also unit 5. And if you are interested in core knowledge, I have a video explaining how this curriculum works. This was not our first time doing a core knowledge unit. It will not be the last time that we do a core knowledge unit. I do like to sprinkle these in. I do think they're very well done. However, we do modify them because they are designed for a classroom and we are a homeschool family. So I do have to modify them. It does take a significant amount of prep work, but once you have the prep work done for each unit, it basically becomes open and go. Or in this case, my daughter was able to do it independently. So she had the nonfiction reader from the unit downloaded onto her tablet. I assigned her chapters or portions to read of that reader. And then she had corresponding activities that I prepped for her in her notebook. Some of them were like worksheets that I printed out from the activity book in the unit. There were times where I would pick and choose different sections across multiple pages from the activity book, and rather than print out all of those pages, I would just hand write the specific portion that I wanted her to do. I would just write that down in her School Nest notebook and have it ready to go. This unit was fantastic. It definitely went a lot deeper into the Renaissance than what we had done as a family in our regular history curriculum. My favorite part about this unit, and it was a part that I was not really expecting, I guess I just kind of missed it when I was prepping the unit. I did not read the entire student reader, so that's probably how I missed it. The unit features women artists, women of the Renaissance. I think for many of us, I know this is true for me, when we think of the Renaissance, we tend to think of the men of the Renaissance. We think of Leonardo da Vinci. We think of Michelangelo. I was not familiar with any of these women. I didn't know their names. I didn't know what they had contributed to the time period, to the cultural movement and the artistic movement that was happening in this time and place. I think it was especially impactful because my oldest daughter is an artist. She is an artist to her core through and through, and she really lit up learning about some of these women, seeing the works of art that they created. And I loved her narrating all of that to me after she read it. I also loved the activities that the unit included that got her writing about these women. It was unexpected, and it was definitely one of my highlights of the summer. Another big accomplishment for my rising sixth grader over the summer is a video presentation, sort of a video essay that she created. This was an assignment from Hearth and Story Brain Food from pretty early on in the curricula in the 5th grade level of brain food, but we had put it off for summer break specifically. I wanted her to be able to take her time with it and not feel really pressured or stressed. And it seemed like a good activity to do over summer break when we have a lighter schedule. The assignment was to create a biography presentation. So it could be a person that you know in real life, it could be a historical figure. It was open-ended. The student is allowed to select who they'd like to do the biography on. My daughter gave a lot of thought to it. She went back and forth with a few different people that she was drawn to. But in the end, we both decided that it actually made the most sense to tie in this project with our June family unit, which was on Shakespeare. During this Shakespeare unit, we were going to be learning a lot about William Shakespeare, about his life, about the timeline of events in his life. Part of our Shakespeare unit was learning about William Shakespeare's life and the timeline of events there. And that really played perfectly with this brain food presentation assignment. I started off going over the assignment with her thinking, this is pretty easy for her. Like for this specific kid, I don't think she's going to struggle a lot with this project. As I said before, she's my artist. And I knew that she was going to have fun making the visual elements of the presentation because anything artsy like that, she's already into that. She already has some experience with digital art applications. She already had experience with using Canva. So I was like, okay, that part, the visual elements part, is going to come very easily to her. And that's probably going to be what excites her the most about the project. I was right about all of that. The project lays out how to gather information about your subject, and specifically it suggests choosing one biography book and taking really good notes as you read that book over the course of a few weeks. My daughter already likes to read biographies and she really likes history, so I figured that learning about William Shakespeare was also going to come pretty easily to her, and it did. But what I didn't quite expect, or what I didn't quite grasp, was that note taking is a skill. And it's a skill that you have to develop over time with lots of practice. And it's a skill that we hadn't really covered explicitly in our homeschool. I didn't realize how much modeling and scaffolding I was going to need to do in order to teach her how to properly take notes. And we did eventually get there, but it did test my patience and her patience at times. I also needed to teach her some video editing skills so that she could compile all of these different components of her presentation. She had the visual components that she designed. She needed to make sure that timing was good, background music, transitions between one slide and the next, and also she had to do a voiceover. Thankfully, I have done all of those things before. I think it would be an even bigger challenge if the parent teacher is totally inexperienced in all of these areas. It would still be doable. You would just have to learn it together, and it would definitely take more time. All that being said, there were definitely some roadblocks and some speed bumps along the way with this project. There were points of frustration, there were points of impatience, and all of those things are natural because my daughter was doing something for the first time. She was learning lots of skills for the first time, and anytime you are learning something new, trying something new, there's gonna be speed bumps, there's gonna be roadblocks, there's gonna be frustration, there's gonna be times where you want to quit. That is just part of the learning process. For my oldest specifically, this was interesting because she is a kid who excels quite naturally academically. And so I don't always see struggle with her when we're doing schoolwork. But y'all, that is what made it so good. Obviously, we don't want our kids to be stressed and frustrated and feel like giving up on a daily basis or a weekly basis with their schoolwork, with their academics. But it is good for them to occasionally face up with something, face up with a task, or learning something new, or building a new skill that doesn't come easily. First of all, those circumstances, those types of situations are just a part of life. And so we would be doing a disservice to our kids if we sheltered them from those moments of frustration and struggle, because when they become adults, they're going to have those moments. And it's good for them to be prepared for that and to know how to process those feelings, how to move through those feelings, because the only way out is through. Second of all, you will never be able to match the feeling of joy and accomplishment and relief that you get when you get through a frustrating struggle. Doing a school assignment that feels a little bit boring, a little bit tedious, maybe even a little bit difficult, it's just not going to give you that same sense of gratification that you get from when you finish an assignment that was really tough, that really stretched you, that really pushed you. And once this presentation was finished, after she had written and edited and rewritten the script multiple times, after she had recorded and re-recorded a voiceover multiple times, after she had sat for hours creating all of her visual slide components, after she had spent more additional hours editing and tweaking and re-editing to make the presentation all come together. After lots of frustration and lots of struggle, once that presentation was finished and she watched it with me, and then she watched it with her dad, and then she watched it with her sister, and then we were able to share the video link with family and friends, the joy was unmatched. The sense of accomplishment, the gratification, the sense of pride that she had and that she should have for the hard work that she put into this presentation. It was just wonderful. I can't say enough good things about it. It was so great. It was challenging and it was so worth it. One of the highlights of our summer, one of the highlights of her entire homeschool journey thus far. And I'm already looking forward to doing this assignment with my next daughter. As I said, the video presentation was on William Shakespeare. If you'd like to watch it and go give my daughter an encouraging comment, I will have the video linked down below. Okay, Shakespeare. That was the big group unit that we were doing over the summer. I did share an unboxing video with some of the books, resources, games that I purchased for our Shakespeare unit. I also have an Amazon wish list with a lot of those items. So if you're interested in any of that, make sure you check the description box. As usual, everything you need will be right there. Key points for this unit. We were going to learn about the life and times of the bard himself, William Shakespeare, and we were going to jump into our first play of his, our first time studying a play of his. And the play that I selected was A Midsummer Night's Dream. Serendipitously, a couple of my homeschool mama pals on Instagram and on YouTube, they were also doing a Shakespeare unit over the summer with their kids. That was just a really cool, happy coincidence. I definitely gleaned a few resources and activities from some of the things that they were showing. Specifically, Nancy, she has a homeschool Instagram called Into the Rabbit Hole with Me, and then she also owns a business, Jack and Link. She makes resources for homeschoolers. Her and her husband also make some really beautiful like acrylic and wooden manipulatives for use with homeschoolers or in the classroom. She was doing a Shakespeare unit with her boys, her very first Shakespeare unit with her boys over the summer. And she wrote up a unit guide and offered to share that with me, which I was very grateful for. This is the unit guide, an introduction to Shakespeare. She was using a lot of the same resources in her unit guide that I had already selected for our unit, including this book right here, How to Teach Your Children Shakespeare. Her unit guide relies heavily on this book, and the core of this book is discussing and memorizing passages from the plays. And through that process, you are teaching your children new vocabulary, You're teaching them about William Shakespeare, about why his work matters, why it's been so influential. But a big part of this is memorizing and reciting the lines, memorizing and reciting the passages. The part I loved most about Nancy's guide was all of the video links. She was very diligent and very conscious of her selections. The video links were awesome for our Shakespeare unit. We watched all of the videos that she included in her guide. We were able to learn more about Shakespeare, see and learn more about the Globe Theater, the original Globe, and also the replica Globe that's actually open and functioning today. And we were also able to learn about some great language arts concepts through the videos that she included. So I'm really thankful that Nancy shared this with me. Thank you, Nancy. Now with this book, Nancy does go all the way through the first 10 chapters in her guide. Y'all, I'm gonna be honest. I think this book is fantastic. The level of passion and nerdiness that Ken Ludwig has for Shakespeare, it's very sweet and it's very contagious. You can just feel that love radiate off of the pages. However, we got a little bit stuck with this book, and I want to say we only got to like chapter 5 when I had every intention of doing 10 chapters. We got to chapter 5. I still think this is a great feature in our home library, and we'll definitely come back to this book. We will continue to try to memorize and recite more passages in future plays of Shakespeare that we study in our homeschool. But for the sake of transparency, we did not get through all of the 10 chapters that I originally had hoped to get through with this book. Another resource that I had planned to pull from for this unit was from Core Knowledge Language Arts. In their grade 5, they do have a unit for Shakespeare, and it is specifically for A Midsummer Night's Dream. Now, I'm contradicting myself because just a few minutes ago, I said, we love core knowledge and you have to modify the units a little bit, but it's no big deal. It's very doable. It takes a little bit of prep work. This unit in particular, the main goal of this unit was for a class to put on the play A Midsummer Night's Dream. And that's a little difficult to modify when you have 2 students. So I'll be honest, I did not really utilize this resource from Core Knowledge nearly as much as I thought I would. I did print character cards from this unit. They're very pretty, very well done, but that's literally the extent of it. I thought for sure that I would use some of the activity pages because the goal is to put on a play or to act out at least a portion of the play. A lot of the activities were really focused on passages of the play. So reading the passages, sort of decoding them and putting them into modern language, and then memorizing and reciting the passages. And since we were already doing memorizing, reciting, discussing passages with this book, I just didn't feel the need to also do that with the Core Knowledge unit. I think the Core Knowledge unit would be great if you had a larger group of kids that were doing this unit together. Maybe you have a homeschool co-op that you'd like to dive into A Midsummer Night's Dream with that group. This could be a great option for you. It just wasn't exactly going to work for us and our circumstances. The last big resource that I was pulling from for this unit was from Layers of Learning. This is their High Renaissance unit that is a part of their art component of their curriculum. And although the primary focus is not Shakespeare, it does include Shakespeare, and it included information about his life, information about his writing, and also some activity pages that were really fun that we were able to tie in, like this Anatomy of the Globe Theater sheet that my kids really enjoyed. The Layers of Learning unit and the Jack and Link unit from Nancy both talked about sonnets. So Nancy included a great video that explained sonnets. There might have even been 2 videos on sonnets, but I know for sure I remember one. So we were able to watch videos that explained what sonnets were. One of the main assignments I had for each of my girls was that they were to create their own sonnet and have that completed and written by the time we ended this unit. Composing sonnets was definitely a bit challenging, but they had a lot of fun with it. We also used this book, and we're gonna be getting a lot of use out of this book. This is How to Be Good at English Language Arts. It is a DK visual guide for grades 2 through 8. I've only just started to dig into this book. and I already love it. I know we're going to get so much use out of this. They do have one for math and one for science as well, and I'm probably going to be picking those up. This book was wonderful for our Shakespeare unit, and like I said, we're going to be going back to this again and again. They explain the 3-act structure. They talk about reading plays, how to read them, how does a script work. They talked about performance, stage performance, and they talk about poetry, lots of different types of poetry, including sonnets, making sense of poetry, how to work out meaning from text and stories. They have a whole section on planning out a poem and writing a poem of your own. So this was extremely helpful. Learning about rhyme and rhythm. As my girls were going to compose their own original sonnet, we were able to read all of this information together over the course of a couple of weeks, and it was very critical to their understanding of where to even get started with that assignment. So let's talk about my favorite part of this unit, which was the books. We had a nice mix of picture books and also some different retellings or abridged versions or children's versions of the play. So I have a couple of introductory picture books that we read at the beginning of our unit. These are really fun and delightful. They kind of play with some of the language of Shakespeare, but they are not meant to be a biography about his life, and they're not filled with a lot of facts and dates. These are great for very young kids and just getting them introduced to Shakespeare. So the first one is Flibberty Gibbety Words by Donna Guthrie. Very cute pictures, very fun to read aloud. There's lots of quotes and phrases from his plays tied throughout the story. We read this multiple times throughout our unit. Next up, very similar, this is All the World's a Stage by Rebecca Platt Davidson. The illustrations in this are gorgeous. This book reminds me a little bit of There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly. If you're familiar with that book where they kind of just keep piling on things, that is exactly how this book is set up, except the things that are being piled on are the characters that William Shakespeare creates. So it's very silly, it's very fun. Next up, I have 2 picture books that are more biographies, definitely filled with lots of facts and information, and less like storybook style. So the first one is Will's Words by Jane Sutcliffe. This book also has great illustrations, really lots of detail. My kids loved studying all of the different faces and detail. This book is filled with facts and information. It was a critical spine in our unit. It's telling the story of the setting, the place. What was London like during Shakespeare's day? How did the plays become so popular? Why did people enjoy them so much? It's telling you about William himself, about building of the globe, about some of the different people that he worked with or was inspired by. At the same time, as you're reading this story, it is including specific words, phrases, idioms that are credited to William Shakespeare. So either he created these, invented them, or he's credited for popularizing them. And now they have become just a core part of Western culture and the English language for many of us, most of us. In the back, it also had a timeline. This was an extremely helpful source for my rising 6th grader for her biography presentation on Shakespeare. This is one of the books that she pulled from the most. Next up, we have William Shakespeare and the Globe by Aliki. I would also consider this to be a critical spine of our unit. And just like with the previous book, my rising 6th grader did rely on this heavily for her presentation. This book also has gorgeous illustrations. It has maps. It is just completely filled with facts and information. The unique thing about this book is that it actually goes all the way to our modern time. So it's not just talking about William Shakespeare and what happened in the past, although it does cover that in great detail, but it also talks about the modern day people who brought the Globe Theater back to life. And it is still standing to this day, this replica theater that they built and designed. And it really just shows their passion for William Shakespeare and this labor of love that they did to bring this experience back to people in our modern day and age. Okay, this last book is pretty much our only miss from the book stack. And I wouldn't even call it fully a miss. I would call it a miscalculation on my part. So The Bard and the Book, this is by Anne Balsam, How the First Folio Saved the Plays of William Shakespeare from Oblivion. This book focuses slightly less on the life of William Shakespeare and more on what happens after his death. The people and events that are intertwined with preserving his works, preserving his writing. This reads like a chapter book. There are some illustrations in here. There's also great historical art and illustrations in here. The writing style is quirky and funny and silly, and it's definitely jam-packed with historical information. I really like this book and I would still recommend it, but I have to add a caveat. My daughters were not huge fans of this book, and I think the reason that it really boils down to is that this book was just a little bit too advanced for them. I can see us revisiting this book maybe in a year or 2 years and them enjoying it a lot more, but they kind of glazed over and were a little bit lost when I tried to read this aloud to them. That could also just be the timing of when we read this. We had already read a lot of books. Were like halfway through our unit. And so maybe they were just kind of ready to be done at that point. I'm not sure. I'm gonna keep this. We will revisit it, but just beware, it might be more geared towards your middle schoolers or even high schoolers. Okay, so let's talk about the play itself, A Midsummer Night's Dream. I had several books to read and focus more on the play itself. So first off, picture book. Gorgeous picture book. I absolutely love this collection, the Story Orchestra collection. I think this is like our third title from that collection. This book is absolutely stunning. Gorgeous illustrations. And of course, it's tying in some really beautiful music to go along with each picture and each part of the story. This is a fun and silly and lovely children's retelling of A Midsummer Night's Dream. This book was not part of my original unit plans. I got this collection because Nancy, previously mentioned, she shared these books in her Instagram stories while they were doing their Shakespeare unit, and I was like, oh my goodness, must buy right now. So this is a retelling of A Midsummer Night's Dream by Andrew Matthews. It is illustrated as well, all black and white illustrations. This book is actually part of a collection of children's versions of Shakespeare's stories. It has all the titles that are included in the collection on the back, and we did buy these in a box set. So I have all of these ready to go if and when we do units on any of these plays. But also my kids could just read these whenever they like, and they already are. These books are definitely geared towards like upper elementary, I would say. They're easy enough for my rising third grader to read. The next 3 books are anthologies that include A Midsummer Night's Dream as well as other plays. So the first one is A Stage Full of Shakespeare Stories. This book is so pretty. The illustrations are gorgeous. These are all of the plays that are included in this book. At the beginning of each play, they're going to have a cast of characters for you. And then each play is just a few pages long. My oldest daughter and I took turns reading this aloud, and we really loved it. Definitely worth keeping on my shelf. Next up is Tales from Shakespeare by Michael Morpurgo. I picked this up when I realized that Michael had a Shakespeare anthology because we've enjoyed a couple of his other books in the past. I really like his children's version of Beowulf. We read that a couple years ago. Really liked the writing style. So I was very excited to see that he had done Shakespeare. These are all the plays that he's included in his anthology. Now, this book, I would say, has less detail and more creative liberty. Here's A Midsummer Night's Dream. It does not have a cast of characters. You just jump right into the story. It's written in a style to where it almost feels like your friend is telling you this story, like your friend is telling you this crazy thing that they heard happened. So it's not really an exact retelling of the play. There are illustrations in here, but they're few and far between. Here we go. A lovely 2-page spread of illustration from A Midsummer Night's Dream. I believe this is the only illustration for the whole play. My kids probably got the most laughs out of this one just because it was a very unique and different take on the play. And yeah, I know that we'll be reading more of this for sure. The last anthology is from Usborne Books. This is complete Shakespeare stories from all the plays by Usborne. Here are all of the plays that are included in this anthology. I do really like that they have this little picture key so that you can differentiate tragedies from comedies. I think that's fun. Probably my favorite version of the cast of characters because it's not just giving you names, but it's also giving you some information, some background knowledge about each character. This book is probably the closest to the original play text. They have put it into our modern day English. They've made it easier to understand for a child, but it's still divided into acts and scenes, and it does follow the original play the most closely, I would say. I did expect there to be more illustrations. The only picture that you're getting for most plays is that opening spread with all of your characters. So for A Midsummer Night's Dream, there's no additional illustrations besides this opening spread. In the back of this book, there is a really detailed biography section, the life and times of William Shakespeare. Lots of great details in here. So this was another source that was really helpful to my daughter as she was making her presentation. And we also have some more fun words, idioms, phrases that are credited to Shakespeare. Okay, last but not least, we had a family read aloud. This is a fictional novel that is a very loose modern retelling of A Midsummer Night's Dream. So this is Midsummer's Mayhem by Rajani LaRocca. This is a story about an 11-year-old girl who is sort of the eyewitness as some very strange things start to happen in her community, in her family, in her neighborhood. We really enjoyed the audiobook for this. I highly recommend it. We also really enjoyed some of the free classroom resources that have been created for this book. You can download them for free off of the author's website. There's great discussion questions in there. There's also some great writing prompts. We used all of them and really, really enjoyed it. It definitely added some more richness and rigor to reading this together as a family. Absolutely love this book. I would score it a 9 out of 10. And the only reason I'm not giving it a full 10 stars is because the ending, it kind of comes together rather quickly and without a lot of in-depth explanation. I think that's a common occurrence with upper elementary, middle grade fictional chapter books. Sometimes they just wrap up the conflict a little bit too easily and quickly for my liking. But otherwise, we absolutely loved this book. I loved the cultural tie-ins with this book. I loved the sibling conflict and relationships and the sibling love. I also really love the relationship between the main character, 11-year-old Mimi, and her parent. It was very warm. It was very sweet. We found the themes in the book to be very relatable. There's some great lessons in here. Baking is a huge part of the story, specifically delicious desserts. And there are recipes included in the book. So if your family enjoys baking, that's going to be a huge plus. And there's another title by this same author inspired by another Shakespeare play, Much Ado About Nothing. And she has turned that into the middle grade novel, Much Ado About Baseball. I have a feeling that we're going to be picking that one up too because we loved this one so much. Because I was pulling from lots of different resources and lots of different books, I was not following a lesson plan that someone else created. I was really taking a look at all the resources I had gathered, taking a look at all the books I had curated, the videos that Nancy included in her guide, some of the printables from the Layers of Learning unit, and I was just scheduling things out in a way that made sense for us. And it worked out really well. We learned so much. We had a blast with this Shakespeare unit. All of the goals that I was hoping to meet, we met. We learned about Shakespeare. My oldest was able to do her biography project. We read all of these different versions and retellings of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and now my kids know that play, or at least the basic plot of the play backwards and forwards. And best of all, now they have some background knowledge and a lot of interest in Shakespeare, so that when we revisit him, when we do more advanced studies with his work, they're going to have that strong foundation to be able to jump in and not feel intimidated. And that was really my main goal with this unit. And then last but not least, we tied in some really fun, playful elements. I had picked up this game. I'm a poet and I know it. It is a wordplay game. And as you're playing the game, you are trying to put together a portrait of William Shakespeare. It is a silly ode to playful language, and we really enjoyed playing it. I was also able to pick up a Mad Libs that was all Shakespeare themed. We didn't touch this as much as I expected us to, but I'm okay with that, because if we do future Shakespeare units, which I'm thinking we will, we'll still have this to be able to use. And Mad Libs are great anytime. One thing that I bought that we actually haven't touched at all was this timeline sticker book. It's really nice and really pretty. We just never got to it. So hopefully we'll be able to pull it out during our next Shakespeare unit. Okay, that was a lot. I know. We had a great summer, y'all. It was packed with learning and fun and swimming and sunshine, extra family time, and lots of progress and persistence in academic areas as well. I hope you enjoyed this summer recap. If you have any questions at all, if I left something out, if I forgot something, just let me know down in the comments below. I will see y'all in the next one. Bye for now, and happy homeschooling.